the creation of the Systematic Observations Finance Facility, the SOFF. I'm your moderator, Chris Gunnis, formerly with the BBC and the UN. Appropriately, today is Earth Information Day and Finance Day at COP26. What better time to unveil a new mechanism to plug vital data gaps to allow for better climate policy and investment decisions. This will be a high-energy, action-packed event with senior-level political interventions. I need to bring us in on time in just 45 minutes, so forgive me for nagging if necessary, and apologies in advance if at times this feels more like speed dating than development diplomacy. So, what is the SOFF and why does it matter? Please take a look at this short video which gives an idea of the scale and ambition of what we're trying to achieve. Please. Could we please have the video?
The climate crisis is a reality that we can no longer ignore. How do we create a future where we prepare for the risk of disasters in time, where we save lives, adequately protect our assets, minimize our losses, and effectively adapt to the challenges of climate change? We need to address the constraints that are keeping us from doing this well. Data is the invisible ingredient at the root of every weather and climate forecast. We often take it for granted, yet it is often weak or missing.
We know there are big gaps in weather data, especially in low-income countries and small island states that are particularly vulnerable to climate change and extreme weather.
In the Pacific, these climate-driven superstorms, the rising seas, and changing weather patterns have been our new normal for some time.
This is not only a local problem. The impacts of the lack of data are global.
While these observations are crucial for making better local weather predictions, the information also feeds into global models that in turn support local climate services for early warning systems, adaptation and mitigation.
Yet the long-term collection and sharing of weather observations data is a huge challenge for many countries.
Dans cette nouvelle ère d'économie climatique, les données météorologiques s'avèrent être des données économiques et le partage de ces informations est absolument vital.
Sectors such as agriculture, water, energy, transport and construction are particularly sensitive, and their productivity and functioning is highly dependent on good data on weather and climate.
The Systematic Observations Financing Facility will allow to deliver those benefits.
According to a recent World Bank report, there are 3 types of benefits. First, avoiding losses. Second, optimizing production processes. Third, improving social and environmental benefits.
By providing financial support to least developed countries and small island developing states, not only for capital investment, but also for operations and maintenance, the Systematic Observations Financing Facility strikes at the heart of the problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary-General, the United Nations Secretary-General, has called for the creation of bold and innovative financial instruments to respond to climate change. and he's urged UN member states, international financial institutions, development partners, and the private sector to create new solutions. With this in mind, I'd like to read a statement on behalf of the UN Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres. I welcome today's announcement of the Systematic Observations Finance Facility, the SOFF. I have long called for donors, multilateral development banks and private finance institutions to work with vulnerable countries to develop innovative financial instruments to support resilience building. Filling the large gaps in basic weather and climate data, particularly in small island developing states and least developed countries, is central to effective adaptation efforts and investments. I thank the Alliance for Hydromet Development and so many partners around the globe for coming together to help close the capacity gap on high-quality weather forecasts, early warning systems, and climate information. I congratulate the World Meteorological Organization, the United Nations Development Programme, and the United Nations Environment Programme for their leadership in establishing this innovative financing mechanism. And I thank countries for providing initial funding to the SOFF, UN Multi-Partner Trust Fund, and I urge others to follow. If we are to raise the level of ambition for adaptation and mitigation, we must take bold and collective action now. Thank you for taking this important step. Well, with that statement by the UN Secretary-General in mind, let me remind you all that the SOFF is a UN coalition fund co-created by the WMO, UNDP and UNEP, and we'll now turn to them. I'd like to give the floor, please, to Professor Petri Talas, WMO Secretary-General. Please, sir, if you stand up here, just in the middle, the floor is yours.
Dear Prime Ministers, dear Ministers, dear Excellencies, friends of weather, climate and water, it's a welcome. I'm happy to welcome you to this event, and first of all I would like to thank Secretary General Guterres for his encouraging words and his personal support for our very important initiative. I'm also very pleased with the engagement of colleagues from UNEP and UNDP, and their support is also highly appreciated from our side. We established Alliance for Hydromet Development 2 years ago at the COP meeting, and now I'm most happy to welcome also new members and members of this alliance. Especially I would like to welcome Mari Pangestu, World Bank Managing Director, Mafalda Duarte, CEO of the Climate Investment Funds, Mikko Ollikainen, Head of Adaptation Fund, Bruno Carrasco, Director General of the Asian Development Bank, and I'm also pleased to welcome Juan Pablo Bonilla from the Inter-American Development Bank, and to announce that IDB just decided to join this alliance. And this SOFF that we are establishing today is an indication of the success of this alliance, and it's demonstrating that we have to invest in weather and climate services and also observations. And without observations, we are not able to provide good services. In modeling, we say that if you put junk in your forecasting models, you are getting junk out. And unfortunately, that's the situation in several developing countries and also several island state countries. We just had our Congress of 193 members 2 weeks ago, where they approved 3 very important issues related to data. We approved new standard for the global basic observing systems. We also approved new data policy to get much more free data floating. And then we also established SOFF to support investments in basic observing systems, which is highly important for climate adaptation, which we are also talking about here in Glasgow. So with these words, I would like to welcome you on behalf of WMO, and thanks for coming, and thanks for your great support for SOFF so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Talas, before you go, I have one question. If there was one word you would use to describe the SOFF, what would it be?
So we have to adapt to climate change, and climate adaptation is essential, and without observations we are not able to provide proper early warning services.
That was more than one word, but thank you very much, Professor Talas. I'd like now to bring in Inga Andersson, Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Programme, who joins us via video link from Nairobi. Inga Andersson, we're very relieved to see you on the screen. I hope you're well. Tell us first, what do you have to say? What's your message on this wonderful day?
Well, let me echo, and first of all, sorry for not being there. KLM had different plans and canceled their flights, but hopefully I'll catch the next one. At any rate, let me echo what Petri just said. Look, this is a very, very important issue. I'll give you the one word, it's predictability. And predictability to know better what kind of weather and how it is changing. The UNEP emissions gap report that we released just a few days ago has outlined how far away we are from the climate goals. And the NDCs are not where we want them to be. They're taking only 7.5% off of our carbon emissions, when we should take 55% if we are to reach 1.5. And this yawning gap, we obviously need to close it, and that means mitigation. But meanwhile, we have another gap, and that is in weather and climate related data in the most vulnerable countries, as you just said, and as we heard Mari Pangistu say, in the Pacific, in exposed countries. And that really hampers effectiveness of adaptation action. And it's a serious problem. And we can't effectively, if you like, adapt if we don't know what we're adapting to. And so the creation of the SOFF, that's a critical milestone to deliver tangible benefits in terms of lives saved, improved disaster management, livelihoods, biodiversity, food security, water supply, economic growth. So from my side and from the side of UNEP, the United Nations Environment Programme, huge thanks. Thanks to our partners at WMO and UNDP. And I thank everyone who has already indicated a contribution, of course, those who are potential and may very well make that contribution into the SOFF UN Multi-Donor Trust Fund. Over to you.
I'm going to have to stop you there. Thank you very, very much indeed. I'd now like to turn to Usha Rao Munari, Under Secretary General and Associate Administrator of UNDP. The floor briefly is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you very much. Good evening, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. Our host has asked me to be very brief, so let me be very brief. As we all know, climate change has created havoc for the world's population, with a disproportionate effect on the most vulnerable populations. One of the issues related to our dealing with climate change and the effects and impacts of climate change is simply, as Inga was saying and as Petri said, reliable data, predictable data with which we can manage the climate change issue and the extreme weather events and so on that hit us through that route, and try to come up with preventive measures. Disaster risk prevention is one of the imperatives as we go forward into the future, and I think this initiative, the SOFF initiative, will tackle this problem that affects us today. We do not have adequate, clear, aggregated, predictable and reliable data, and I'm confident that with SOFF we'll be able to tackle this problem. UNDP is delighted to partner with UNEP and WMO in launching this very, very important initiative, and I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being so delightfully brief. That was Ms. Rao Munari. I'd like now, please, to turn to some of those countries that have made such crucial roles in establishing the SOFF by giving such incredibly important political support. I'd like to turn, please, to the Prime Minister of Cabo Verde, His Excellency José Correa e Silva. Let me ask you, first of all, why is scaling up adaptation such a high priority for your country?
So thank you for the invitation. All protocol observed. Directly to the question. Cabo Verde sits with high economic and environmental vulnerabilities and strong exposure to climate change. We have an active volcano and a territory where the ocean represents about 19% of the country's surface. Monitoring meteorological and climate phenomena is important to predict and mitigate their effects. Cabo Verde needs technical and financial assistance and collaboration to set up a good monitoring system. I believe that SOFF can be an effective financing, capacity building, and technology transfer tool for this proposal. I hope that you can help and we can be a good partner.
I sincerely hope they can. I'm sure you'll hear what His Excellency is saying. But one last question for you. Why are you so personally invested in the SOFF? What does it mean?
Because it's important for the country. I hope that SOFF can be an initiative very important to predict and to help countries like Cabo Verde, because we haven't financial capacity and we need technical assistance to go up with this important initiative.
Minister, many thanks indeed. My last protocol duty is to see you off the stage. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's go now to the Caribbean, as it were, and to Belize, also a strong advocate for ambitious climate action. And allow me to take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of Ambassador Carlos Fuller. Where's Carlos? I hope he said hi. Who's also a COP vice president, who has been engaged in the development of the SOFF from the very early days. So, Carlos, thank you very much indeed. I'd now like to turn to your Minister of State, His Excellency Christopher Coy. Minister, take me forward 5 years. Let's suppose the SOFF has been operating for 5 years. What difference has it made in your country? And you have to, it's on, just hold it very close to your mouth. Very, very, very close. Yep, no, it's fine.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. As you may know, Belize is also one of those small island developing states. We are facing the dual vulnerabilities of debt as well as climate change. The past couple of years, I would say, give a good synopsis of the challenges that we face. 2019,
hold it further to your close.
Yes. 2019, we suffered severe drought that wreaked havoc on our agricultural sector. In 2020, we had another set of extreme events in terms of floods, multi-generational floods that we suffered. So the importance of data and being able to plan will enable us in many ways 5 years from now to adjust our agricultural productivity, enhance its efficiency, as well as ensure the protection of...
And Minister, forgive me for interrupting you, if the SOFF is not established, what are the risks for your country?
Well, the converse applies. Certainly the implications are that we are not in a position where we can plan for that future, where we can plan for our small farmers to adjust with the changing environment, with the extreme weather events.
Minister, thank you very much, and thank you very much for being with us. I would now like to move to Africa, and Her Excellency Dr. Sada Mkuya Salum of Tanzania, Minister of State in the first Vice President's office. Can you please, in front of the thing, and you have to hold it very close to your mouth, the microphone, very close to your mouth. So, let me ask you my first question, Minister. Why is the SOFF so vital for strengthening efforts to build climate resilience in Tanzania?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Tanzania's population is about 60 million people, with 80% depend on agriculture. So you can imagine how the agriculture is so vulnerable to the weather changes. So to have SOFF in place could also mean that we'll have to predict the change weather, and so that we can have better strategies for the people. For instance, like in 2019 in Tanzania has been the hottest and wettest year since 1970, by the year that I wasn't even in this world. So that if we could have the SOFF that could support strengthening the systems so that we can have earlier warning systems and specific the data, could also enable how well to prepare for the agriculture, which is the most important ingredient of our GDP.
So, Minister, speak specifics to our development partners here. What will it mean specifically for Tanzania?
Okay, for Tanzania, since it is one of these developing countries, we don't have any financial capacity to install the systems for ourselves. So definitely, if we have SOFF in place, it could strengthen our capacity, not only for Tanzania, but also for the neighborhood. We have the East African, we have the SADC. We could have capacity to put in place the systems, as well as the capacity of the people to ensure that we are able to predict way before any events could occur so that they could destroy our economy as well.
Thank you so much. I hope you are all listening. I'm pleased now to welcome to the stage. Thank you so much. Please, Your Excellency. I'm pleased to welcome to the stage His Excellency Frank Bainimarama, the Prime Minister of Fiji. Thank you very much. If you just hold it very, very close to your mouth. Can I ask you, first of all, what will be the impact of the SOFF on Fiji?
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The SOFF is very important for us. I believe the most effective protection we can give our people in the face of serious storms is timely knowledge. That is early warning of what they can expect. In decades and centuries past, many thousands of lives were lost in storms that are not as severe as the storms we are suffering today, simply because people had no advanced knowledge. They did not know when the storm would strike, how strong the winds of tidal surges would be, how long the storm would last, or how much rain they would fall. So they would be able to evacuate, protect their properties, or find shelter. Today, that is changed.
Tell me more, if you don't mind, about the impact that SOFF will have.
Thank you. As some of you may know, since 2016, 13 cyclones have struck our islands. In the Pacific, climate-driven superstorms, the rising seas, and the changing weather patterns is our norm. That is one of the reasons that we've been forcing the international community to work on the NDCs.
Do you have more, Minister?
Yes.
He breathed.
Yes.
I thought he did.
Yes. Disaster, as I said, disaster readiness and disaster resilience are two sides of the same coin, as I've already said in one of my statements, and they both depend on robust weather and climate data. For this reason, we strongly support the SOFF designed to support vulnerable countries like Fiji.
Minister, I will have to cut you off there. Thank you very much for coming in and talking to us. Please. I would also like to pay tribute to Mr. Fento Chering, lead negotiator of the LDC group, and Seni Nafo, representing the African group of negotiators on climate change, who have also joined us. You have been playing crucially important roles in bringing the SOFF to where we are today. So thank you very much to you and your staff. Now, as we all know, the World Bank has been a driving force in creating the Alliance for Hydromet Development. And I'd like you to hear from Marie Pengescu, the bank's managing director. Ms. Pengescu, you know both perspectives, the country perspective from your previous role of minister in the Indonesian government, but also you have a vantage point over the SOFF from a multilateral development bank. A simple question for you, why is the SOFF so important?
Excellencies, esteemed guests, and all of those joining on the live stream, I am very honored to be part of today's event on behalf of the Alliance for Hydromet Development. So it's not just the World Bank, but it's an alliance of 13 major development and finance partners who formed the alliance at COP25. And we are very proud to see SOFF coming off to fruition at this COP26. I think why it's important, we've heard from all the countries involved just then, how important climate and weather observation data is for prevention of disasters and preparing for disasters and to make informed decision making. I come from Indonesia. We are not a small island development state, but we have a lot of islands. We have 17,000 islands, and we are, also subject to tsunami and many natural disasters. So we are very aware of the importance of weather and climate observations. But SIDS are really highly vulnerable to climate change and natural hazards. Over 60% of countries with the highest losses from disasters are SIDS. With average annual damages of up to 9% of GDP. But we also just then heard from Tanzania, who also would like to have the SOFF there. And it is really about providing data so that we can have the adaptation policy and investment decisions that need to be made so that we can prevent, prepare, and respond effectively and reduce the costs on human lives, the economy, and the country.
Ms. Pangestu, thank you very much indeed. Time presses. Thank you very much. And thank you to the World Bank and all other members of the Alliance for Hydromet Development. Many of them are with us here today. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, transferring $100 billion a year from rich countries to vulnerable countries remains a COP ambition. And here the SOFF will play a crucial role. Dozens of organizations and hundreds of committed people have contributed to the development of the SOFF over the past 2 years. But in order to make it a reality, we will need support, financial support from bilateral and multilateral partners. It's now time to hear from the initial group of SOFF funders. It is not a coincidence that we are gathered here at the Nordic Pavilion. Our venue reflects the strong Nordic leadership in creating the SOFF. May I first go to Denmark and His Excellency, Mr. Flemming Møller Mortensen, Minister for Development Cooperation and Minister for Nordic Cooperation. Please, sir. Yes, you have appeared. Thank goodness. The floor is yours.
The IPCC report is clear. Even at 1.5 degrees, humanity will face great climate changes. No part of our lives is immune to disruption and damage from weather and climate trends that we did not foresee. And the poorest and the most fragile countries will be hit hardest. Both the IPCC report and the Paris Agreement are clear on why we need to act. Here in Glasgow, we need to show the world how we are going to act. Part of the how is to keep our promise from Copenhagen. This means delivering on the goal of $100 billion in climate finance for developing countries. And Denmark is ready to do its part. We will increase our grant-based climate finance to more than $500 million from 2023. By dedicating at least 60% of our grant-based climate finance to adaptation, we will meet the call both from developing countries and the UN Secretary General. A call for a better balance between mitigation and adaptation financing. Together with our mobilized climate finance, Denmark's total contribution from 2023 is expected to be at least 1% of the collective target of $100 billion. This is well beyond Denmark's share and a strong signal that we are ready to walk the talk. However, before we can begin to adapt, we need to have strong data on weather and climate. In short, we need to know what to adapt to. Those people who are hit hardest by climate change are also the ones who have the weakest collective weather forecasts and climate services. We need to correct that. The Systematic Observations Financing Facility could provide vital weather data and information. This means that public planning and private investments can adapt to a rapidly changing climate with higher temperatures, changing rain patterns, and more severe natural disasters. Denmark stands ready to support. Thank you.
We are going to stay briefly with Denmark, and I'd like to invite onto the stage the Danish climate ambassador, Thomas Anker Christensen. Mr. Ambassador, why is Denmark playing such a strong leadership role in setting up the SOFF?
We do think that supporting the SIDS and the LDCs in their efforts to strengthen adaptation is one of the vital components of moving forward on the climate agenda, and the Danish government is ready to commit to supporting the mission of SOFF. And the weather and climate data that is needed is really necessary, not only for managing the storms, but also for ensuring the sustainable development of the SIDS and the LDCs. I think the minister from Tanzania mentioned agriculture, but also for general development. If you don't know what the weather is like, you really can't plan anything.
Ambassador, thank you very much. We'll stop there. I'd now like to go to Norway and Her Excellency, the State Secretary, Bjorg Sandkjær, who is also with us, we hope and pray, virtually. May we please have...
Participate in this event on the Systematic Observations Financing Facility. The climate crisis is the main challenge of our time. Together, we must respond forcefully and urgently. Communities are already struggling with the devastating consequences of climate change. We have to step up action to meet this challenge. Norway will double our climate finance towards 2026 and triple our support for adaptation. Early warning systems and climate services are among our priorities. It's important to close the weather and climate observations gap. Therefore, Norway warmly welcomes the establishment of the Systematic Observations Financing Facility, or SOFF. We are in the process of assessing our support to the facility as I speak. SOFF is well aligned with the Norwegian government's focus on climate change and poverty reduction. I believe that SOFF's strong convening power and important network of implementing partners will be essential for its success. And I am confident that the facility will ensure that the whole value chain is developed, from the collection of the observation data to the end user, for the farmer as well as the policymaker. Transforming observations and data into more readable formats will be very useful for the end user. And strengthening the gender perspective and reaching local communities is key. And let me also emphasize the need to ensure that the initiative is sustainable over time. Norway looks forward to follow SOFF closely as the implementation progresses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Nordic support for the SOFF is also coming from the Nordic Development Fund. I'd now like to bring in Henrik Franklin, Director of Portfolio Origination and Management at the Nordic Development Fund. He's with us from Finland. Mr. Franklin, thanks for being with us. What is the SOFF offering that is new and innovative?
Thank you, Chris. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. The Nordic Development Fund is pleased to join the previous Nordic speakers in welcoming the SOFF initiative. We are particularly honored that it's being launched in the Nordic Pavilion. And for those of you that don't know, NDF is the joint Nordic International Finance Institution focusing exclusively on the nexus between climate change and development in lower income countries and countries with fragile situations. And the least developed countries and the small island developing states are among the most vulnerable to climate change, and strengthening their capacities to generate accurate weather observations and climate information, while increasing the global exchange of such data is key for climate adaptation. And having accurate metrics is important for strengthening early warning systems, to sharpen decisions, for catalyzing both public and private investment, but most importantly to save lives and to increase the resilience of vulnerable populations.
Mr. Franklin.
And to your question, Chris, yeah, I mean, SOFF is innovative because it's really enabling the participating countries to reach this global basic observation network standard, and also applying a results-based financing approach to sustain implementation as it moves along. And
Mr. Franklin, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I have to deliver these good people to their next engagement. So thank you very much, and special thanks to you and your team for contributing so substantially. The SOFF is not only supported by Nordic partners, we will now have other European announcements of support. I'd like, first of all, to call on Professor Dr. Miguel Miranda, representative of Portugal with the WMO. I believe we have another video. I can see them struggling with that video, so we'll move on. I would like, please, to bring onto the floor, or to give the floor to Peter Launsky, Secretary General of the Austrian Federal Ministry of European and International Affairs, who joined us virtually. We can now go back to Portugal, or he's with us? We can now go back to Portugal. So I'd like to give the virtual floor to Dr. Miguel Miranda, representative of Portugal with the WMO.
Despite the current level of technology and science, there are still areas in the Earth where observations are missing. We need to solve this problem as soon as possible, because climate change is becoming the greatest challenge of humanity. Portugal is proud to support the SOFF initiative, either monetary or in kind, and we hope that the whole community will be able to cover the Earth with high-quality meteorological and climate observations that are key for our near future.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, the SOFF would not have been possible without strong Austrian leadership from Dr. Michael Staudinger, WMO President for Europe, and Markus Repnik, WMO's Director of Development Partnerships, and his dedicated SOFF team. Both of them are with us today, and so are other WMO regional presidents. I welcome Dauda Konata, President for Africa, and Yolanda Gonzalez, President for South America. It is now my pleasure to give the floor to His Excellency Peter Launsky, Secretary General of the Austrian Federal Ministry for European and International Affairs, as I was saying earlier, who joins us now virtually.
Heads of the World Meteorological Organization, Secretary General Peter Talas, the United Nations Development Programme Administrator Achim Steiner, and the United Nations Environment Programme Executive Director Inga Anderson. Austria congratulates all institutions involved on finding an innovative answer to a global challenge, and is pleased to announce its support to the Systematic Observations Financing Facility SOFF for 3 important reasons. First, filling the major gaps in the global observation system as defined by the World Meteorological Organization will significantly improve the quality of much needed weather and climate forecasts on a global scale. This is the basis for better warnings and climate predictions, both on long and short-term timescales. In one way or another, all segments of society will benefit from improved weather and climate forecasts. Agriculture, business, transport, and individuals from all walks of life. Secondly, the creation of SOFF as a UN coalition fund involving WMO, UNDP, and UNEP showcases how the UN organizations can work together most effectively as one UN, joining forces with many stakeholders. Thirdly, SOFF underpins crucial elements of the Austrian development cooperation by improving warnings for extreme weather events which, in times of climate change, are affecting countries of the global south much more than in the past. Development and adaptation to climate change will be supported locally, regionally, and globally. Austria will contribute substantially to the SOFF UN Multi-Partner Trust Fund, and we call on all other countries to join with adequate contributions. Thank you.
Dear friends, we have heard 5 countries and organisations pledging financial support so that the SOFF can be launched and start delivering next year. And there is more good news. In addition to these 5 countries, Switzerland is providing financial support for setting up the SOFF Secretariat in Geneva in the startup phase. And in addition, several others are also lining up to explore future funding options and support. In particular, I'd like to acknowledge Canada, France, Spain, Sweden, and Turkey. Friends, may I please ask you to give a big round of applause to SOFF's supporting countries and institutions. Now, backed by this strong support, we shall move now to the legal creation of the SOFF as United Nations Multi-Partner Trust Fund. And so to the signing ceremony, which we need to move through quite rapidly. Ms. Jennifer Topping, Executive Director at the United Nations and Head of the UN's Multi-Partner Trust Fund Office, joins us now from New York. Ms. Topping, welcome to the signing of the SOFF. What for you is the significance of this moment?
Thanks very much, Chris. And in the interest of time and speed dating, the spirit of speed dating, I will do the all protocol observed as well. It's really an honor to be designated as a trustee for the SOFF and be here with you, at least virtually, for this moment. On the significance to your question, I would make 3 brief points. One is, firstly, with the signing of the SOFF today, WMO, UNEP, and UNDP, this marks the first day 1 of the shift from SOFF's design and concept and into operation. So we're moving now from ambition and into action. And this is really a unique opportunity to leverage that coalition and the partnership that we've heard.
Jennifer.
Secondly,
oh, sorry,
yep.
On you go.
2, significance is that this is a huge recognition that there was a big missing piece in the financial architecture for the type of work on prevention and data that SOFF represents. And the 3rd point of significance is that this formal moment is by signing the documents that we'll sign today with the MOU as trustee. We've signed it already, but this legally establishes the fund, and that means it is open for contributions and the SOFF is open for business. So a big thank you to the anchor investors that have already done so. And that also means, along with that signature, that the assurance is there from ourselves as trustee that we work to ensure that highest level of transparency, fiduciary, and standards for high performance that go along with that role at the service of SOFF and the coalition partners. So thanks very much, Chris. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I think your message is clear. The time to move into the action phase of this project. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Jennifer said, the MOU has already been signed by the heads of the UN Multi-Partner Trust Fund and also, by the way, by UNEP. I would now ask the leaders of the other co-founding members to sign the Memorandum of Understanding that creates the SOFF. So I'll call you in alphabetical order. Please, Usha Rao Munari, step this way. And Professor Tallis, let's get you moving towards us. They have to sign 4 copies to make it legal, so forgive the time lag. Right. We're being urged to move on. I'd like very briefly, if I may, to call on the Assistant Secretary General, Selwyn Hart. We had the message from the Secretary General earlier, but please, sir, some concluding thoughts from you.
Thank you. Thank you so much and good evening. The reality is, as the Secretary General has repeatedly said, climate adaptation and resilience remains the neglected half of the climate equation. 30 years of international climate negotiations. After the promise in the Paris Agreement to balance adaptation and resilience finance, adaptation finance remains a mere 25% of total climate finance flows. This is outrageous, and we need all of your support to turn the tide. So the Secretary General has called on donors and the MDBs to allocate at least 50% of their climate finance flows towards adaptation. This saves lives and livelihoods. Denmark, the Netherlands, and Sweden have been the only countries to step up to the plate. We urge others before the end of the COP to support this call by the Secretary General. Adaptation and resilience finance, this type of support and this type of initiative, it saves lives and livelihoods. And we are in the race of our lives. Thank you.
Selwyn, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, a call to action from the Office of the UN Secretary General. We now have to vacate the venue, I'm afraid. We invite you cordially, please, to the Science Pavilion just round the corner to join us for a reception. So please, step that way. Thank you.